Hello, dear Valiants. This is an announcement. I want to tell you about something that I've been working on. For the longest time, I've had problems with show notes. In particular, my problem with show notes was that I found them really, really boring to write. And I don't think I'm alone with this one when it comes to podcasters. Often you write your outlines or you record your show and then you're like, okay, let's get it out to the world. And then what happens? Well, you gotta write the show notes and it slows everything down. Usually the end product is not very interesting. Nobody really reads it, but you gotta have the show notes, right? So I said that this has to change. If I want to keep producing this podcast, it has to be as enjoyable as humanly possible. And this was one of the least enjoyable aspects. I've thought about a number of things, but the most important thing that came to my mind is to go from having a podcast to having a blogcast. So instead of reading these short show notes that aren't very interesting and don't reveal that much about the episode, I've decided to take my outlines and turn them into full-blown standalone blog articles. So if you go to the page on the valiantgrowth.com website for the previous episode, episode 50, which was an interview on level 2 productivity with Jake DeSillas. You've probably heard that episode, but have you seen the blog post? If you go to valiantgrowth.com/50, not only is the episode there, but you will find a standalone blog post. It's in this case kind of a shortened, extracted version of the full interview. I didn't put everything in there to make it readable, consumable, but I put the main ideas in, and there's also a little bit of extra content as I went through and thought about what Jake said, and as I processed it, a little bit of an extra angle came up as well, a little bit extra thoughts, extra ideas as I was writing it. My purpose is to give you options and to give you something that's valuable on its own. Really, the biggest problem with show notes is that they're not worth reading. That's what made them boring to write. But now, if you need a refresher, you can go to the page and it's going to have a blog post that covers a lot of the episode with a little bit of extra. If you were really excited by some idea in the episode and you want to share it, but you know that, it's hard to recommend even a 40-minute podcast, right? If somebody sends me, hey, check this 40-minute thing out. I really loved it. I really got some great stuff out of it. I mean, I will listen to it, or maybe I won't. It's gotta be a very good sell. But if you send me a 5-minute blog post, an article, that's much easier to consume. So that's good for me, as in helping me increase my impact. And it's good for you because you can help guide the direction of your social circles and have more and more people who speak the language of personal development. So when it comes to interviews, there will be kind of an extracted and interpreted version of what we talked about. And when it's solo shows, it might cover the entire content of what I talk about, or it might cover part of it, or again, it might have a little bit of an extra edge. So in the upcoming 51st episode, where I'm going to talk about politics and why I quit it, I will have a more complete story in the blog post, which actually is already posted. And I'm going to go into a little bit more of the actionable angle in the episode, because as I was reading the blog, I realized that that's not up to standard. So the two will pretty much complement one another. So from now on, if you go to the website, instead of these boring show notes, you will get something that's valuable on its own. And if I do this the way I did it with this previous episode, I might have blog posts up sooner than the podcast, and then later that little player with the podcast will be added to the post. And that's because I don't always have the time to do both on the same day, or don't have the energy to do both on the same day. So I'd love to have your feedback on this idea. I'd love to hear if you like it, if you like the article so far. If you agree with me that it's more added value, or you could tell me that, hey, Philip, I think you're wasting your time. You should just get back to just make podcasts and nobody cares about the show notes. I'm curious what you think. In other news, I also wanted to tell you that you may notice that I'm doing a lot of interviews, and that is because I have a backlog, and I'm trying to break it up with solo episodes, but I do have a backlog of really good interviews that I've made, but I had a lower productivity cycle and they kind of piled up. And I kept going making the interviews even when I wasn't releasing anything. So some of these people have waited very long. That content has been buried for pretty long, and I want to get that out of respect for them, and also because it's great content. But after that, we will resume with the solo shows. And I'm sharing this with you because my vision for Valiant growth is that interviews are typically sparse, because I think interviews in the podcasting world are generally not that good. And there is a great temptation of just bringing guests and guests and guests and guests on just to get more reach, or because it's an easier format, or because, I don't know, maybe a lot of people like it. There are many interview shows that are pretty popular that are just interviews. Some of the biggest podcasts are. But I personally don't like them that much. So when I bring on a guest, I want to make sure that it is someone that I know, and there's some content there that is actionable, that fits the Valiant growth standards. And I made a few mistakes with this in the past, so I'm especially careful in the future. But yeah, there will be more interviews coming up. I think they're really good. I think they're really valuable. But just so you know, after that, it's going to be back to the old mix of many solo shows and the occasional guest. Also, when it comes to blogcasting, I also want to say I'm trying this out. I have to see what the reaction is, and I may find another way of getting over the show notes problem in the past. But right now, I'm very excited about this, and I'm really enjoying it. So that's what I'm looking forward to. That's the future path that I see. But as always, that may change. I made announcements before that later, but they're not valid anymore. Also, if you do like the kind of talky, conversational style of podcasts, when it's either interviews or co-hosted shows, I am working on a project, on a new podcast, in fact, that will be co-hosted. And it's still in the making. We have a schedule for it, but it is still in the making. And when it rolls out, you will find out about it from the podcast. Now, I didn't do the intro because it's not an episode, but I like the outro. I think you should hear that every now and then, so I'm going to go ahead and say it. Thank you for listening, and I dare you to flourish today.